Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Gambler's World Winner's Circle Veteran Style from Las Vegas. Three of the finest handicappers in the country are going to give you an insight to Week 14 in the NFL this week. And I might as well bring out our special guests each and every week. Mr. Jim Feist, known as Mr. Vegas, been leading the cause out here against the point spread. Jim, now for we won't even say how long it's actually been, but you are the veteran of the strip. And last week, Jim happened to give us all Seattle as the best bet of the weekend. And Jim, never in doubt, congratulations, though there were some people that thought you were off the tracks last week.
A lot of people think that every week. and sometimes they're right. And sometimes they're correct. You know?
Thank you for that winner, and I'll get back to you for that. And the man still alive in Survivor and circa the Survivor contest, the biggest contest in Las Vegas, revered and renowned Paul Bovi. Mr. Bovi right now. Our Paul is a regular on Circa's Friday night shows. And if you can go to vsin.com, you'll be able to get their radio podcast. Paulie, I understand you had two entering last weekend and ended up with only one selection. Who was the culprit that did you in this week?
Yeah, well, it was the Cincinnati Bengals, and I could have opted for Tampa Bay, as did 11 people, but unfortunately, I did not. I really thought Carolina had a shot to beat them, and that I would catapult myself by virtue of a Cincinnati win and a Tampa Bay loss. It didn't work out that way. The Bucs should have lost the game. Carolina should have won, but a series of circumstances broke the favor of the Bucs, and they ended up prevailing. So I'm down to one, unfortunately, 52 left, and it's going to be a tough road at this point.
Well, you know, Paul, 52 left among, what was it, Jim? 14,600, something along that entry?
I think it was 14,360 or something.
There you go. And Paulie, we're not over 50% of the field gone after week two, and wasn't it Cincinnati that did almost everybody in the first weeks of the contest?
Yes, I got bangled. The Bengals, I knew what I was doing. I knew it was a chance, but look, nobody counts on Joe Burrow turning the ball over three times, which is exactly what happened. I understand the defense wasn't particularly good. In fact, I'm being very gentle with that. They were awful. They were god awful, but they were keeping pace. But unfortunately, the turnovers ended up doing them in, and it was just unfortunate. But we move on.
Right.
We did win some money. I did take some money out of the game with some hedges, and it was a decent amount. It was low five figures, so it all was not lost, but unfortunately, that's like kissing your sister at this point.
Well, you know, still, Paul, among 52, you're live. And like they say, Jim, a chip in the chair, you always got a chance, right? I mean, that's how the World Series of Poker was born, I guess. In the NFL this week, week 14, some interesting doings. I got a question for you guys. Maybe it has nothing to do with the playoff races. Quarterbacks, we talk about them all the time in the NFL. There are a couple of clubs out there. What are the Jets going to do next year with Aaron Rodgers? Your gut feeling. And the Giants just cut their $60 or $40 million quarterback, just gave him an outright release. There's going to be a lot of shuffling going on. Jim, how do you think the Jets are going to approach next year? And we know the Giants are going to be looking for a quarterback. Are the Jets looking for a quarterback, or are they going to go with Rodgers a third time?
I don't believe Rodgers will come back. Personally, I don't think they want him back. He's toxic. The guy's got an attitude. He's got an edge. He doesn't work hard. No, I wouldn't want him on my team. I didn't want him when they got him. But the Jets have been dysfunctional for 25 years. So it's hard to bet on dysfunctional organizations, whether it's a business or a team. They're not going to turn it around until you change the ownership. And the ownership is there. Jerry Jones, 27 years not in the championship. Jets, it's been forever. Teams that are bad, have bad ownership, bad upper brass making decisions. They don't know what the hell they're doing, and they mess with the game, and they ruin it.
Yeah, Jim, you had Seattle. You had Seattle last week as your top play. Did you watch the game at all? I mean,
I did.
I watched all the game. Okay. Did you think at any point in time that they weren't going to come back somehow and beat the Jets, who scored 21 points in 50 minutes?
These games, you can get situations where the better team just doesn't show up, or the breaks for a short period of time or a long period of time will go the other way with the dysfunctional team actually winning. I mean, there's a lot of teams out there with 2 wins, 3 wins.
Yeah.
You know, they're bad.
Yeah.
And the Jets are one of them. Yeah, they have a big name quarterback, but he doesn't play like a big name quarterback.
Paulie, excuse me, James. Paulie, you've seen Rodgers this year. I know I have. He's just doesn't look anything close to the Hall of Fame quarterback we've seen throughout his career. He seems a little bit slower. He doesn't seem as agile, and his ball. It still has a great release, but it just doesn't seem the same. Do you think he's got a shot of coming back to the Jets, or do you think he's going like Jim says?
I don't think so. And he was on the decline 2 years ago with the Packers. Jets took a flyer, figured it was a win now situation. In other words, you're not signing Aaron Rodgers for futuristic purposes. This is a win now situation. And it turned out that perhaps they just don't have the talent to do it. So let's not put it all on Aaron Rodgers. There's some other pieces in place that need to get inserted or fixed or whatever you want to call it. So at this point, I don't think he is coming back because the Jets really have to rework this whole offense, defense, and kind of start over. I just don't think the pieces in place are going to get them to the next level.
All right, Rodgers, of course, needed to be rejuvenated, and he wasn't. What's happening in Pittsburgh with Russell Wilson? I mean, he's been rejuvenated and actually playing like an NFL quarterback for the first time in 3 years. I'll stick with you, Paulie, right here. You think Wilson has enough to take this team to the Super Bowl?
You know, I've been a critic of Wilson last year, Denver. A lot of his stats were compiled when they were down 2-3 touchdowns. There was one game against the Lions. He had 50 yards in the first half, finished with 250. And that was a trend. But I got to give the guy credit because he has stepped up. Now, the first 2 games he played, he had menial stats against Washington to shade over 200 yards. Same thing the following week. But he's definitely been an improvement over Fields and getting the job done at this point. Now, last week it was the Bengals, and we all know the Bengals really don't possess a defense. But I think things are going to get a little sticky for him this week against the Browns. They're favored at home by 7 points. I'm still not a Russell Wilson fan. I'm still not sold on him, but maybe he'll prove me wrong by the end of the year because the Pittsburgh Steelers certainly have. I didn't think they'd get this far, and right now they're favorites to win the division.
Like, you know, quarterbacks that you can count on. I know one of them, Jameis Winston. You can count. There's going to be scores when he's throwing the ball. We're not saying which side is going to be doing the scoring, but there'll be points put on the board. All right, listen, just give us a like, share us with other people, subscribe, let your friends know we're out here, and we are giving the best inside information Las Vegas can present to you on a weekly basis. We are, of course, gamblersworld.net, and this is Vegas Legends Winner's Circle. Now, here we go, and we've got Jim Feist and Paul Bovi. Paul, once again, I'm going to come right back to you first. Seattle and Arizona are the big contenders in the West, and the Rams are even in the shadows here. Seattle at 7-5, pull off that big win that Jim had predicted last week. Arizona 6-6, blew a big time game last week to the Vikings in Minnesota. If they had won that game, they both would have been 7-5. Maybe it took a little tarnish or put a little tarnish on this game. Arizona comes in losing 2 in a row, Paulie.
Look, I like Arizona. I think they're playing excellent football. Early in the year, they had a couple losses, and they both followed really big wins. They were letdown spots. Notably, they beat the 49ers early in the year. Doesn't seem like such a big accomplishment now, but back then it was. I think it was 24-23. Then they lay an egg the next week. But they've had some impressive wins over the Rams. And unfortunately, on Sunday, I don't know how they blew that game. They were outplaying Minnesota till the latter stages of the game. And then Sam Darnold just woke up, was just firing the ball down the field, finding seams in the defense, in the secondary, completing passes to Jefferson and Naylor. And the Vikings end up pulling the game out. And Arizona has made great use of a 3 tight end set, and McBride is breaking records right now. I think Arizona at home is going to hold serve here. These teams played a few weeks ago. Seattle got the best of it, and I think the Cardinals are going to turn the tables.
And Jim, you know why that was also an unlikely loss for the Cardinals? I mean, they held the Vikings to 68 yards rushing. This is in the NFL. I mean, they're allowing 15 yards rushing per quarter, and they get beat. Had to be very disappointing for them. 2 in a row on the downside, returning home a favorite under a field goal.
Well, it was a good game from the standpoint that they played well for a lot of the game, and they should have won.
Yeah.
But there are games like that. There's where teams should win, like Paul said earlier, where Carolina should have won last week and they didn't. But that's the kind of league we have right now, because we have a lot of underperforming teams that play up the ladder a little bit, and they play well for a short period of time, then they blow it. I mean, even if you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, who right now a lot of people think are the best team in the NFC because of the injuries to the Lions, they usually start off slow, but they finish the game on fire. And you don't want to get in their way in the second half. Once they wear you down with the physicality of that running game, they eat you up, and that's what they did to Baltimore last week. And how can you explain Baltimore? They start fast and then they finish slow. And Lamar Jackson, everybody thinks Lamar Jackson, best player in the league, most valuable, but he never wins the big game. He just fades down the stretch, and he doesn't come up big against the big games. And that's not championship material.
Like we said last week about he always seems to be able to give up the ball or turn it over or something crucial in the final moments of the big games. It's happened year in, year out now. I'm really wondering if he ever has all the intangibles it takes, Jim, to win a Super Bowl. And time will tell. He's a great athlete. No doubt he's a great athlete, but it always seems like they're up 7 points. They lose by 3. And in the fourth quarter seems to be his nemesis, particularly in the playoffs. All right, thank you for that. Hey, don't forget, give us a like. We're right here each and every week. This is gamblersworld.net. I want to say old geezers. I'll say Legends editions, but with the veterans here, we can't throw Paul into that mix, Jim, for us right now.
No, you got to leave Paul out of that. He's way younger than we are.
Yeah, and so don't hesitate to give us a like and a share. And don't forget to watch our weekly daily shows hosted by Sean Higgs. And a number of us are on each and every day. You get free picks at gamblersworld.net. So log on and become a big game winner. From Las Vegas, we're live once again. I'm Chip Chirimbes, Jim Feist, and Paul Bovi. We're all selling our goods at gamblersworld.net. Premier plays. Check the leaderboard, see who's hot and who's not, and just follow the flow. All right, guys, talk about trending. I was going to say about how we trend in the sports handicapping world. In football, it's the same. The Buffalo Bills are going to L.A., and they've been trending up now since week 4 or 5 when they had to destroy the Jets, which they did. Of course, who didn't? And now they're going to the Rams, and the Rams are still in the hunt. Jim, I'll start with you. 6-6 for L.A. Small dog at home. You think they can pull the upset needed?
I have a lot of feelings about this game. I'm on the Rams. Look, I try to get the best number, of course. We all do that. We have an ankle problem with Stafford. I don't know how severe it is, but it is curtailed his practice this week. But looking at the Buffalo side, last week they clinched their 5th straight AFC division title.
Right.
There's got to be a little celebration, at least mentally. Maybe they can go out partying and drinking all night, but you got to relax. Hey, man, we're in the playoffs. We won the division. Now they travel across the country to play the Rams, who are a well-coached team, but lacking the talent that should, they're not as talented as Buffalo, which is why Buffalo is the favorite, and they should be the favorite. However, this could be a spot where you might have a flat spot mentally from Buffalo. And because Buffalo has big games coming up right behind this that could say, hey, this could be a sandwich spot. And we know the desperation the Rams have, because right now it's the Rams against Seattle and Arizona that we just talked about. They have to win. If they blow this game, if they don't win this game, and I'm not talking about the spread, I'm talking about straight up,
right,
their season is probably over.
Paul, we're aware of the quarterbacking situation here with the Rams. Stafford may be a little hobbled. He had some efficient numbers last week as they beat the Saints in New Orleans. But they've reestablished a running game, and the runner is Karen Williams, Kyrie Williams, he is from where? His third year in the league. He's Notre Dame, and he is really carrying the load for the Rams on the ground. I think it's been a big difference for them, and they're only 6-6. A win here is vital for them to move on with Seattle and Arizona going head-to-head. They have to gain on one of those, but then Seattle's able to put a measure of distance between them if they don't win.
The problem with the Rams is, and I'm not going to refute Jim in saying there can't be a letdown. But first of all, the Rams are not a good football team. You could go down that schedule, and I really can't point to one really solid game that they played. Last week against New Orleans, the Saints had the lead. Taysom Hill goes out of the game, and the Saints got down there at the end and just couldn't get in from the 7 or 8 yard line. They had beaten New England by 6. New England had 2 of their pass rushers out who combined for 7.5 sacks. They got blown out by Arizona early in the year. They got beaten by Chicago early in the year when the Bears were just an awful football team and could not run the ball. You go down that schedule, and it hasn't been good. And even the 49er win that they had, Moody missed several field goals, which could have iced the game. So I don't have a lot of faith in the Rams. Now, on the Bills side, do I see a letdown? There is a possibility that they will, but I think they're very focused, or should be focused, only because they don't want to go to Kansas City for the championship game. You know that they want to play this game in the confines of warm, toasty Buffalo come this January, okay? Because they just beat them there 30-21, and it was not an easy win. I mean, Josh Allen ran for a touchdown late in the game as they were trying to run out the clock and made for a 9-point differential, but it really was a lot closer than that. Buffalo, I will say this, you could run the football against them. We saw the 49ers do it. We saw the Dolphins do it. So you pointed out Williams, and that's their best chance to win this football game, is that if they run the football, control the clock, don't make mistakes, because if they get into a shootout with the Bills, they're not going to win. They're not as good a football team as Buffalo, and Jim pointed that out, no question, no how, and I don't think Buffalo is going to let down.
Let me ask you a question, if I may. That analysis is absolutely perfect, and one of the reasons I took the Rams, because I feel they're going to be able to run the game. But let me ask this question about the total. If the Rams are focused on controlling the ball, and they should be, because you really don't want to get into a shootout with Josh Allen and that team, because they're not capable of keeping up with them, would you think the under is a bet in a game like this? Now, I know it's perfect conditions indoors, and sometimes that doesn't work, but maybe with that game style and the fact that Stafford might have an ankle problem that could be worse than we know.
Right.
You might have to control the ball on the ground, and that eats up time.
I wouldn't be taking an under on a Bills game at this point. They give up too much yardage. They're one of those teams. And look, the 49ers the other night, they got out of the gate, and they were moving the football. There was no question. And then a couple things happened. McCaffrey gets hurt. The Dolphins, remember, Tua went 25-28 against this team. And those two running backs, Mostert and Ashawn, they ran the ball for $150. I can't get involved in an under with the Bills at this point. They give up too much. And the Rams, if they have success on the ground, then that's going to open up the passing to their two wideouts, Kupp and Nakua, who obviously have a lot of talent and can make a difference here. So I would be off the total, and if I were going one way, I would go to the high side.
All right, there you have it out there. You have opinions from two of the finest sports handicappers in Las Vegas, legends in their own time right now. Some of these guys just sit and log on and say, I want to get these guys premier picks at gamblersworld.net. Give us a like, subscribe, and even share us with some of your friends. Let them know we're here each and every week. This is the NFL preview for Week 14. I'm your host, Chip Chirimbes. Jim Feist, the legend, and Paul Bovi, who's got him quaking out here in Las Vegas. Guys, big game. I'd say San Diego Chargers, but maybe I'd be dating myself. LA Chargers going to Kansas City. Chiefs 11-1. But once again, Jim, this is a team that doesn't get over the number. They're 5-7 against the points. The Chargers, very consistent this year. 8-4 overall, 8-4 against the number. One thing unique about them, they've been an underdog 4 times and have lost 3 of those 4 against the number.
There's a lot to be said about this game. The Kansas City, we know they've been burning money. They just don't cover spreads. But this is not a big spread. It's not. But here's the problem: Humphrey could be coming back at the left tackle. That's big. Pacheco could be coming back at running back. Kansas City has been taking leads in games and then giving up the leads, and it ends up close. Against Carolina, 30-27. Against they 19-17 against the Raiders. They had leads in both those games, but they're not closing it. Now, if you have their left tackle back, that's going to keep Mahomes from getting hammered, because he's been getting hammered on that left side. So if he is there and can play, and he is supposed to play, and you have Pacheco to hand the ball off to, that makes a big difference. On the other side, there are 2 players that could be out for the Chargers, both wide receivers. And one of those wide receivers has a 50-some% success rate when thrown to by Herbert. Now, it drops off to the other receivers. If he's not in the game, and I can't, McConkey, that's it. Yes, and then
thank you, Paul.
So what you're dealing with here is a team that has some deficiency on offense against a team that's going to get stronger on offense, and we know who the better team is. So is this number too low? Should it be 6? Should it be 6.5? Because they are, however, they are the world champs, and they do have the players, and they do have the coaches. And I'm not faulting Jim Harbaugh, who I think is one of the best that's ever coached in football, but Andy Reid's pretty damn good. You know, this is the same motivation you were talking about with Buffalo. You were saying Buffalo doesn't want to not have the home field in the playoffs. Well, Kansas City doesn't want to go to Buffalo either. Okay, so they want to stay home. So the same motivation that Buffalo might have at the Rams, this team has at home against the Chargers.
All right, thank you, Jim. And, you're getting great insights from some of the best handicapping minds out of Las Vegas right here at gamblersworld.net. Thank you, Jim. Paul, these 2 met in September. Chargers jumped out to a 10-0 first quarter lead with 4 minutes to go in the first. Never scored again. Kansas City wins that game 17-10. As a matter of fact, they've beaten this team 6 straight times in 8 of the last 10. Chargers, have been, like you said, the coaching change. Chargers are a different team this year, and they've been in the past with Harbaugh leading the way.
I think that home field means a little less to Kansas City because they have proven that they can overcome that obstacle in the past. It means less to them because they have won and Buffalo hasn't won. But I'm not going to say it's not important. But if they don't have McConkey in the lineup, it's been all McConkey. I mean, the other receivers have basically disappeared. Johnston dropped how many balls the other 2 games ago? And then he dropped another one this past week. It's not pretty. It hasn't been pretty. But here's the problem with the Chargers. They have an offensive line that has a leaky hole, a leaky spot. And the guy who's blocking is this guy, Trey Pipkins. Atlanta, who never sacks the quarterback, never. I believe they had 3 or 4 sacks on Sunday and a couple near misses as well. So you have to figure Kansas City is going to unleash the fury. And at some point, multiple times throughout the game, Justin Herbert's going to go down. I don't see the Chargers scoring more than 17 points here unless the Chiefs gift them the football. And I have to feel that the Chiefs are hearing all these press clippings. I heard something the other day where a writer with a vote in some of these awards, recognition, MVP, He left them out of the top 10. How do you leave the Chiefs out of the top 10? Pedigree counts for something, and winning football games also counts. I mean, I understand they've played 14 one-score games consecutively, but they somehow find a way to win, and that does count. I think the Chiefs are going to win the football game by virtue of the pressure they put on Justin Herbert. And if McConkey's not in the lineup, forget about it.
Thank you, Paul. You know, this is Paul Bovi giving you insights that you can only hear here at gamblersworld.net. And by the way, guys, in that first matchup, Chargers had only 12 first downs and 55 yards on the ground. Doesn't bode well for them. I think they might be in a tough spot. And by the way, guys, I'm going to ambush you with this one because I didn't even send this one out to you. It's a game we can talk off the cuff. If you have anything on, it's fine. Atlanta and Minnesota. You know, here's Minnesota coming from behind last week with that big win. Atlanta at 6-6. The reason why I brought this up, right now, Atlanta gets a bye and Minnesota doesn't, as the standings are, because they're going to be a division leader. Minnesota 10-2 is going to be out there in the Netherlands. Kirk Cousins said he had one of his worst games ever last week, and he's still recovering from his Achilles injury. We've seen that Rodgers is struggling, returned from his, and age, of course, is a factor there. What do you do now? Minnesota's won 5 in a row. Atlanta's lost 3 in a row. Jim, I'll start with you real quick, and then we'll get out of here right after this.
It's all about the fact that Atlanta doesn't put pressure on quarterbacks. Paul just said that, and he's 100% right. You also have Kirk Cousins, who not only had the Achilles in the offseason that he had to recover from, there's something wrong with his arm. He's got a shoulder problem. I watched that game several times because I wanted to see what was being said was true. And it's no question. He was throwing lollipops that you would throw to your 5-year-old kid. I'm telling you, if he has to play that way with that arm, if that's really what we're going to see, they're going to get killed. Yeah. Minnesota will bury them because you can't not put the pressure on the other quarterback, and you can't win if you can't throw the ball with some kind of velocity. And last week, the velocity of his passes were horrible.
And, okay, Paul, I'll say one thing about Cousins. When he's lost 2 in a row, third game out, 18-9 against the points and 27 times during his career. You think that'll matter here, Paul? Atlanta in need. They're the 4th seed. I might have misspoke with saying they'd get a bye. They're not. They're the 4th seed. Minnesota's the number 5 seed. You see this one shaping up as a battle?
I don't think Atlanta's a very good football team. I don't. And I'm going to give them credit because they really statistically dominated the Chargers on Sunday. They should have won the football game. There was a pick 6 in there, multiple opportunities by the Falcons that they did not convert into points, and they gifted the Chargers their share. But you look back a few weeks ago, and Denver just steamrolled this team. I think it was 38-6. It was just never a contest. They don't run the ball well. Bijan Robinson occasionally will have a good game. He did have one Sunday, and they have Algiers. So let me take that back. They can run effectively at times, but they just don't stop the run well. They don't cover receivers well. There's too many inefficiencies, inadequacies on this team for them to compete with the Vikings on Sunday. The Vikings, say what you want, they're going to at least, they are the number 1 blitzing team in the NFL, and they are going to really put pressure on Kirk Cousins. And it remains to be seen how he's going to handle it, because if he can't handle pressure on Sunday, this is going to be a long day, because the Vikings will the blitz rate for the Vikings, as I mentioned, it's the highest in the NFL. And I also think that Minnesota will be able to run the football. They have great receivers, and Sam Darnold, all of a sudden, as I mentioned, came to life in the 3rd and 4th quarter last week, and he was able to get it to those receivers in tight windows at times. So I just think Minnesota is going to win this football game and basically win it easy.
Well, you know, if we have a quarterback situation once again with Cousins that's got Achilles problems and his mobility is limited, and you have a team that's going to be blitzing, I think it doesn't look too good for them in this case here. You know, Atlanta. One last thing: Atlanta's on the hook for $60 million in salary cap if they don't want to go on with this guy next year. So they're committed to Cousins once again, the way the Jets formerly had committed to Rodgers. We'll see what happens in the future there. Most people agree that Atlanta may win the division, but they're not the strongest representative out of the NFC. That's for sure.
Chipper,
Yeah.
I've already bet Tampa Bay to win the division. I'm not too worried about it.
Well, you know, they won last year, right? And Mayfield's really emerged and matured a little bit.
I think they've won it 2 or 3 times in a row.
Well, I think previously they had a guy named Tom Brady that might have been playing with him. And,
I don't remember him. I don't remember that name at all.
Yeah, that helps somehow, I would say. But, you know, it's interesting franchise anyway, especially their color scheme sometimes. But anyway, this is I am Chip Chirimbes, Jim Feist, and Paul Bovi. Once again, I'm going to hit you from the blind side. Jim, give me one play for the weekend in the NFL.
Whoa, one play. The Bears.
Okay,
the Bears
and Paulie?
win straight up. They get the new coach bump. You're playing against a team you got to put a fork in. They're done. The Niners have had they've had off-field issues in the offseason. Players want to get traded. Players not getting their contract. Right. Purdy's been hurt. CMC is gone. They've got the Trent Williams, the tragedy in his personal life. And then if he's not at left tackle, it's murder for the quarterback because he is maybe one of the best left tackles there is. And this is a bump. Yeah, Chicago's a mess. But they finally got rid of, thank God, the coach that couldn't coach. And he probably should have never been hired in the first place. They're going to get a bump. I like the Bears straight up.
All right. Niners, of course, we know are physically hurting, and now he wants these bullies from the midway to come and take care of the Niners. Paulie, you got one for me in the NFL?
You know what? I'm going to throw out tonight's game. People will get this prior. Let's reward those people that see the video early. I like the over in tonight's game, Detroit and Green Bay. And the reason is that these teams played a few weeks ago, 24-14. And I have to tell you, it was a little bit misleading. The Packers only punted twice, one of those 2 penalties leading up to the kick. And Jordan Love dropped back 42 times. He was not sacked. He was only hit twice. He ran the ball 3 times. And now you have a number of defenders from that game who are out of the lineup with injuries. And these are not has-beens. These are important defenders who will put pressure on the quarterback. Whatever pressure they could muster up is not going to be there. They didn't get much pressure last game. So the damage was done last week by Jaden Reed. Dobbs is going to be out of the lineup. He really didn't do much. And I think Detroit's going to struggle. So they're going to have to outscore them over 51, 51.5. And that's where I went. And Sunday we'll have plenty of plays up. At least 3. All
right. Thank you, Paulie. You know, I was all season long, I'm thinking that this Detroit looks like they're destined to get to the Super Bowl. And now the way they've been, the impact of losing their 2 top defensive players, I'm really wondering how that's going to play out before the year's end. Anyway, we are gamblersworld.net. Jim Feist, Paul Bovi, and myself, Chip Chirimbes. We'll be here each and every week. This is the Vegas Legends Winner's Circle edition. And we'll be back week 14 for NFL. Listen, everybody out there, stay calm. Don't eat too much. I know there's leftovers, and you may have had a hangover from the big weekend. I know I didn't do too well last week, and we're all rebounding this week. Paul, thank you very much. Jim, once again, thank you. We'll be back next week. Give us a like and a share, and we'll see you next week. Good luck, everyone.